Hey everybody, this is another raw and real video. As you can tell, I don't have any kind of professional setup here. I believe in showing you that you don't need to wait for the perfect setup to get on video, to create, to share your magic with the world. Use what you have because your authentic energy will come through, and that is kind of the mantra that I've put forth in the Create Your Own Oracle Deck course, because I firmly believe that you have your own special magic here to deliver to the world, and by really deepening into that and expressing you from your authentic essence in your deck or in your other creations, you will draw to you the people who are looking for your magic, because it's not about staging, it's not about the perfect setup, it's not about anything being pristine and bright white and super clean, and there is no such thing as perfection except for the fact that you already are perfect as you are. And so this video I am creating because of a discussion with Tammy, who is in the course, and talking about how important it is to allow yourself to sit down and tune in and create from your essence. If you're working with specific energies for your Oracle deck, tuning into those energies and just creating from those energies without any sort of attachment, just allowing the flow to begin. And maybe keeping those creations, maybe throwing those creations away. The important thing is that you are actually tuning in and beginning to train yourself to create from that space, this space, instead of this space. So we're going to create from here instead of creating from here. And so I have a stack of these, what I'm going to teach you to do today. I use different kinds of paper. I've got spiral notebooks, I've got watercolor notepads, I have, canvases, I have tons of things that are just lying around that I create and I add to. And so I wanted to show you some, and these are all works in progress, right? The point is not to sit down and create the art for your Oracle deck. The point is to sit down, tune into the energy, and play, and just let whatever's going to come out. Those of you who may have practiced automatic writing or practiced voice channeling may have noticed the same thing, that sometimes you just need to sit down with paper and just write, letting it all come out, not judging it. Kind of similar to Julia Cameron's morning pages. I've never really felt drawn to her work and her processes, but I know that that's a process that works for a lot of people, is to just sit down and write 3 pages and you're done. This is kind of a similar idea where you're just going to create, except we're not limiting ourselves to 3 pages. The goal is going to be to create quickly and turn the page, create quickly and turn the page. And then ultimately you'll have a stack of pages, or a notebook full of pages, but a stack of pages is what I have here, that you can go back to time and time again. So maybe I'll go through one pass and I'll just create on 10 sheets of paper, and I feel like I'm done. And then another day I'll sit down with that same stack and I'll just go through again and I'll ask, meaning not that I'm expecting to get an answer, but it's more that by asking, I am creating the space and the possibility for that energy to come through, for that creation to come through. So I will sit down and ask, if anything wants to be added to this page, if anything wants to be added to the next page, and I'll just listen. And again, the goal is not to finish a piece of art. The goal is to honor the energy that's there and initiate the flow, so the flow can continue. So the flow can continue. So anyway, the point is not to create your Oracle deck art. The point is to work the muscle, to exercise the muscle of tuning in and creating from that space. So remember that throughout this process. You can take this process wherever you want. This is something that I've done before in my car. So if you've seen my Melly's car art videos, that series, I create in my car, and sometimes I'll do something like this in my car. This is something that you don't need a lot of space to create. You don't need a lot of tools. I have several different tools here, but you don't need any of them to do what I'm doing. So I have these aqua pastels. They are water-soluble crayons by Jane Davenport. I have some watercolors here. I have a tin of watercolors. These are handmade watercolors by a woman who named her company Artistic Isle. So I wanted to try her handmade watercolors. I have some watercolors that are a mishmash of a lot of handmade watercolors from people on Etsy that I just put together in one tin. I have an Inktense pencil, so this is a water activated pencil. I have a white paint pen. I have a black brush pen / marker, a couple brushes, just random brushes, and some kind of like metallic brush pen. So I just kind of grabbed a handful of things. Use whatever you have. I don't care if all you have is this pen, you can still do this exercise. So I invite you to pause this video, take a couple minutes to just grab some things, and I'll see you back here. And actually, wait. Before you go, unless you've gone already, I did want to show you, so this stack that I have that I've been working on for a few weeks now. So here's one piece. You can see there are a lot of different layers, a lot of different mediums that I've used on it. I just keep adding to it. Here's another one that, again, you can see some stuff that was on there that I've recovered up. Because again, the point is not to complete the art right now. The point is to create without judgment. So these are all pieces that are in progress, that they don't have any particular use yet. Or maybe they never will. You know, sometimes I get to a stage on a painting and I just want to release that energy, and so I will just throw it away or something. But I just wanted to show you kind of the variety of pieces, and here's one that's in kind of the beginning stages where it's really just paint smeared around. And I have this piece that I have been working on. There's a lot of metallic ink in it, so you can kind of see that metallic shine from the light coming in the window. And then here's one that I just started. This was actually the back of a watercolor paper pad on the cardboard, and so I just started playing around here as well. But that is your preview. I invite you to go and grab some materials and also to grab some kind of a stack of paper. Here I have a stack of watercolor paper. I also have a spiral notebook, just a regular writing notebook. So go get something that will give you the ability to flip pages, to tear out pages if you like, and I will really see you back in a couple minutes. All right, go. All right, so here we begin, and I'm just going to be talking as I'm creating because that's easier. It's also easier for me in terms of the video because there's not as much time-consuming video editing to do. And I don't tend to do a lot of video editing anyway because I feel like I would rather just come through and be authentic and real because that's the way I create and that's kind of my message anyway. And so I am just going to go ahead and create here real time. I'm feeling compelled to just put this watercolor on the paper. And again, to remind you, this is more a demonstration of the process, not the marks and the techniques that you should or shouldn't be using. This is just, I'm going to go through this stack of paper here, and then we'll see what we've got at the end. So I am just tuning into my heart space, and I'm feeling the rhythm of my heartbeat, and I am keeping my awareness there as I am adding. So sometimes I will take all the sheets in my stack and add something to them and then go back and add something again. Right now I'm feeling like and this is because that's what my own intuition is telling me to do, that I want to go ahead and add some additional marks. Again, the goal is to get something out on the paper, just to get marks out, because the marks and the movement can assist in just expressing that energy. And you don't need to know what's going to happen, know what you're going to do with it. You don't need to worry that, oh my God, this doesn't look like this applies to my Oracle cards theme at all. That's not the point. The point is training yourself to allow this flow to come through so that maybe bits of your Oracle deck theme will start to emerge in your artwork. Maybe it won't. Maybe it will. Maybe at some point later you'll have this stack of imagery that's been created, you know, with your Oracle deck consciousness in mind or with your own intention in mind. and you'll start to see themes, and maybe those themes will pop out as the inspiration for your oracle deck. So now I've got this other page, and again, I am just brushing water over this whole watercolor paper. This technique, the technique again is not important, but this is called wet in wet watercolor, when you wet the paper first, and then you grab some paint from your paint tin or your tube watercolor, or again, whatever medium you personally feel inspired to try, because this is not a watercolor technique or an art technique video. This is a get random, get playful, just get something down and, you know, play. It's really about the play, because again, which I talk about so much in so many of my videos, it's that playful energy that gets us into the vibration where we are able to receive more. And also realize that sometimes there are stages. Oh, that's really cool, how this aqua pastel makes the watercolor run away. Watch that. Did you see that? That's so cool. And that's fun and delightful for me, you know, to have seen that, to have noticed that that's an effect that happens. So really just getting some marks down, feeling the energy, and not worrying about what comes next. I do have this marker, and I feel like brushing this marker on here. And I can see how interesting it is that this marker started bleeding when it touched the pool of water. So I'm just playing with that some more, because that was fun and that was cool. And so I'm going to do more of that to see what happens. That was so cool just to watch. There we go. All right, and then I feel like moving on to another page of paper. So I'm just moving these all over to the side, and there is no agenda. Now I just feel like making some marks with a crayon. Making some marks with the crayon. And again, this doesn't have to be a long practice. It doesn't have to be a short practice either. If you really get into the flow and you're really enjoying yourself. The one thing that I advise is to not get so worried about wasting paper, wasting materials, wasting time. This is a practice, and this is, again, building a muscle. And so we are just bit by bit opening the door, unlocking that door to your own creative capacities. And I go into this more as well in my Find Your Unicorn Treasure Hunt course, where we, you know, I give you weekly codes to help to unlock your own unique creative capacity. We install frequencies, and we also go through different exercises just to kind of get you in tune with how your intuition speaks to you. And some of these, you know, these marks and these quote techniques that I'm using are kind of my own developed repertory of, you know, I like to start with scribbles. I like to just scribble on the page. I like to draw circles for whatever reason. I like to use bright colors, and I like to mix them all together and see what happens. It's like a big science experiment to me. And so I will do things like that. I like to play around with different art supplies. So I will get out a variety of art supplies just to see what happens. I'm trying to reactivate these watercolors. They have been dry for a little while, so I'm just dropping some water in there, and I'm actually going to let those sit aside while I pull this one out. I'm really feeling drawn to that turquoise again. And I'm just pulling that in. And again, I'm not judging. I am just putting color down, making marks, noticing what you enjoy the most. So this isn't about forcing anything. And part of the reason that I actually have never felt like getting an official art education is because so many of the exercises they do I just find so uninspiring, and I feel like life is too short to get stuck in things that are boring the heck out of me. I mean, I cannot do a landscape painting to save my life or a still life. I sit down and by 3 minutes in, I am absolutely over it and I just want it to be done. And that's my personal preference. You know, that's part of my style, which I have discovered by doing things like this, where I am just sitting down and I'm creating. Oops, I broke my crayon, so I'm just gonna, maybe I won't take the whole wrapper off. I'll just use this bit here. But, you know, I have started to notice what I'm drawn to. And I highly suggest, and this is something that you could do too for your Oracle deck, is to sit down and kind of tune into the consciousness of your deck, which we've gone over before if you're in the course, and to have the intention of, you know, getting some imagery downloads or some ideas of, you know, what will open me more to maybe a visual translation of the energies that my deck wants to bring through. And then start flipping through Pinterest or searching a word on Google. And this is a technique that I teach as well in my Create Your Own Intuitive Logo Design, little short audio course. But then visually responding and starting to create a collection of images that inspire you, or images that just feel either resonant or feel like they are somehow involved with your own creative endeavors, and start to notice what art you collect, and or what, you know, Google images you collect, or what pins you save, and start to notice the common themes. And then not strategize as in mind strategize, but begin to allow yourself to play with, how can I express that? I noticed that a lot of the, you know, photos that I'm drawn to on Instagram have bright colors, and I also noticed that my artwork has bright colors, and so I can definitely see an alignment there, that is just part of the way that energy comes through me, is through color and through more abstract representations. So again, I've just sat down here and I'm just going through page by page, and I've got all these other pages laying out on this coffee table that I'm sitting at here in our current living room. My son and I actually live downstairs in the basement, but my housemate is at work today, and so I am making use of the extra space. I also like to play around with really digging into the pigment and getting a lot of the paint on my brush, as opposed to a lot of traditional watercolors tend to be more muted, and that is just not my style. That's not something that draws me in, and so I continue to explore what brings me joy when I'm creating it. What brings me joy when I'm creating it is using a lot of art supplies. I mean, I will go through an entire box of soft pastels in one painting if I am so inspired to. And so I've kind of been holding off using my pastels lately because I don't have the ability currently to replenish my supply, and I don't want to not be able to use them at all. And so I've kind of been tempering my intuitive nudge to use more pastels, just for that practical reason, which is just a current consideration. And you can see I'm just continuing to play. Oh, what happens if I just add some more water here? What happens if I add some more water there? I'm feeling compelled for whatever reason to add some of this green. It's just a very opaque green watercolor. This is one of the handmade ones, again, by Artistic Isle. And so I'm pulling in my crayon again. Oh, and look at that. The crayon is chasing the paint away, so I'm going to play with that up here, just because that's so super fun to watch. And that's what I absolutely love about mixed media, is it's just so much fun for me to not limit myself to sticking with just watercolor or just pastel or just acrylic, and to also allow myself to just keep going. And who cares? I mean, I'm not caring what it looks like. I'm just playing around. And this Aqua Pastel, which is a water-soluble crayon by Jane Davenport, has such a super fun texture. I really love how it feels when I'm dragging it across the page. So I'm just playing around with that even more. And just kind of moving my hand across the page. Another thing which I've taught in some of my videos is the kind of yes or no tuning in. So I will like hover a tool over the page and I will just feel like, where do I need to make a mark? Yes, yes. It's almost like hot and cold are using a metal detector. So you're searching for gold. So I'm hovering and I feel like here, I feel like a yes to touch down. And then I just feel into what mark to make and how far to go. And I really feel like coming back over to this side of the piece. And then I'm hovering again, metal detector, yes, where's no, 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 yes, yes, yes. And just adding that back in there. And I have not sat down with a specific intention for, you know, tuning into the consciousness of my Oracle deck, because I'm in the process of creating this mermaid deck, which may or may not come through, and other things keep coming up. So it's almost like having my focus on the mermaid deck is creating the space in my subconscious or unconscious for other inspiration to come through intuitively. And so it's almost like the mermaid deck is a decoy that I'm supposed to focus on so that these other projects emerge. And so again, I'm honoring that. So it's not about a specific outcome. It's about, okay, well, I'm interested in that, and now the inspiration has gone away, and so that's not anything wrong with me. That's not for me to judge and say, oh, there's something wrong with me because I said I was going to create this Oracle deck, and now I haven't created this Oracle deck, and you know, I said I was going to work on the mermaids, and now I'm not inspired by mermaids. What's important for me is to honor that I'm not inspired by the mermaids right at this moment. Just like for you, I know that many of you have started on decks and either changed course or taken a little bit of a hiatus from your Oracle deck making, and that is not something for you to judge at all. There is a reason for that. Some people are getting new downloads, but they needed to pursue the first idea first in order to create the space or in order to have a more powerful deck in the end. So just honoring that even if you don't know why, even if you told everyone that you were going to have a deck and you were going to have a deck finished, even if you enrolled in this course with the idea that you were going to have a finished deck by, you know, whatever date. And if it hasn't happened, you are not doing anything wrong. You are listening. And instead of forcing through a deck that has either transformed or deepened or, you know, now has another purpose, just listen and honor your own process and don't make yourself wrong, because you are doing everything right. And part of why I encourage this kind of play that I'm demonstrating is because you're sitting down and you're getting back into that flow where there is no agenda, where you're just making marks. I could literally throw all of these pages away when I'm done with this session, and maybe I will. Maybe I'll throw some of them away. Some of them I will probably save to add on top of, like the stack of pictures that I showed you earlier that I have been working on, layer by layer by layer. The key is not to need to know. Now I'm feeling inspired to pick out a pen, and I think I'm going to use my left hand. I am right-handed, so. And just feeling into, that was really cool. I really liked that mark that the pen made when I dragged the brush pen fast. and this just feels so nice, this movement and pressing down and really feeling this flow, this movement flow. And now I'm feeling like drawing. Using your left hand is another way to, one, tap into the inner child, and to also tap into the more subconscious and intuition. So it can be fun just to mess around with marks and see what happens. Now I'm feeling like I want to pick up my crayon and just add some marks. And you can see how these pieces are absolutely random. There is no plan, there is no right or wrong. I'm just feeling my way, and I'm really enjoying putting these crayons on their side and just dragging them across and pulling out some marks. And now I'm feeling like going back to the watercolor. And again, I'm demoing with different tools, but you don't need to use any of these tools. You are welcome to use what you have. Adding some of this watercolor here. And again, you can see how thick this watercolor is. One, because I'm using, artisan pigments or professional grade pigments that have a higher pigment load than just the Crayolas would have. But also, instead of using them in their diluted state, I'm intentionally digging into the pan and scooping up some of that paint, because I personally really love that richness of pigment and the richness of the texture it produces on the page. I love the way that looks when I'm creating it. So I just keep listening to that because that's my intuition. You can see another of the techniques that I just really love is tapping splatters all over the page. So that is something, you'll see it in all kinds of artwork that I do, but it's just something that I have noticed is something I love and happens very frequently when I'm creating. And so I honor that. I can identify that as part of my repertoire, as part of my own inner unicorn creativity. And so I'm just playing, and that was an Inktense, so this will smudge when I go over it. So I'm just playing around with that effect. What color is that? That is a, dark chocolate it's called. It's pretty. It's kind of a chocolate cherry color. And all I've got here, my water, by the way, is just in a an Alfredo jar. I tend to wash these jars out, and I just have jars of water kind of everywhere so that when one gets dirty, I can use another one. But again, I invite you to just get out a stack of paper, play, let them sit, come back to them later, and if you don't like them, throw them away. The point is not to get attached to something. The point is to discover and invite what I call your unicorn, spelled UNIQUORN, unique unicorn, to emerge. And in order to let her emerge from the dark forest, it's essential to give her space. And by doing an exercise like this, you are creating the space. So again, this is not a, I'm sitting down to finish my deck and I need to create some art for my deck, and so that's what I'm gonna do, and I have to use whatever I create because, whatever reason. This is not about putting any pressure on yourself. This is not about anything other than giving yourself space, tuning in, whether you set a specific intention to say, I would like the energy of my deck to come through and I'm going to create from that energy. Or maybe you've been doing some channeling and you want to explore this energy that you're channeling a bit more before words come through. Maybe you've got the energy, but you don't have imagery and you don't have the words yet. Maybe it is still in the energetic state. So an exercise like this can take you into that exploration stage. And now I'm going to use this different brush. and just play around with some marks with my watercolors here. Can probably have room to bring that in the frame, actually. So sit down and play with the energy and just notice, are there any patterns? As you go page by page, are there certain marks or certain colors that you are repeatedly drawn to? Are there certain themes? Are there certain certain images or textures that repeatedly emerge? So it's really a matter first of taking the step and being open to exploration and to play without the limitations that you automatically put on whatever you're creating when there's an agenda. So anytime we sit down and say, you know, I'm going to draw a tree, or I'm going to draw a landscape, or I'm now creating my Oracle deck art, that tends to actually stop the flow. And I think it's funny because, especially in the marketing world, for entrepreneurs, etc., there is so much talk about, you know, vision boards and defining your goal and, you know, hustling to reach that goal. And I think it's so funny because once you get attached to a goal, you actually limit the expression, because you're making conclusions and you're putting restrictions on your creations. So there's a difference between having an intention and then being willing to explore and follow the energy, because the energy will take you on a journey if you allow it to. You can see I'm having a lot of fun with these aqua pastels. I keep coming back to them. So that's something I'm noticing, putting on my list for replenishing art supplies, is something I really am loving, and really loving applying it in multiple places. So this is really about, again, just like with your deck in general, it's about honoring your process. It's not about, well, so-and-so published her deck and it looks like this, and or so-and-so is already established, and so I need to make sure that whatever I create looks like what she creates. That, again, is limiting yourself. You can see I like playing around a lot with brush strokes too, so again, I just honor that. It's not there's no right or wrong. It's just kind of noticing the themes and allowing yourself to continue to play. Because you might happen upon something as you're playing that you know is going to be part of your Oracle deck work. Or maybe because I love these kind of textures are going to become the background for my cards. Or maybe one particular texture out of, say, 20 pieces that I create, maybe one piece suddenly is the one that I know I'm going to use later. And so just noticing. That's all you need to do is notice. Now I've got a stack of these. What I'm going to do now is show you, I just have a spiral notebook here, and although I have this stack of watercolor paper because I tend to store that stuff around here so I can sit down and play, I'm showing you can do the exact same thing in a spiral notebook. And for this one, I'm going to use the same crayon. I'm going to flip pages, and I'm just going to make some marks, and I'm going relatively quickly. I'm just going to go through about 5 pages or so. So you can see how I do this in real time and how quick I'm going. And when you do go quickly, you know, it allows you to tap more into that intuitive space. And now I'm just taking a different color crayon and I'm going back through all those same pages. And I'm just intending to follow the energy of that moment. I mean, you can see I'm literally scribbling, right? This is obviously no strategy. And I'll just go ahead and add something to this page, even though it was empty. Now I feel like grabbing my brush, and this is just based on the supplies I have again on hand, what I feel like doing. And yeah, these are all going to touch, and this paper is really thin and it's not really meant for watercolor, but that doesn't matter. I don't care if it buckles. I don't care if the pages stick together. Again, the whole point is just to sit down and play. It's really just to sit down and play. There we go. And here we go. And just back and forth, back and forth. And now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to choose one color of watercolor to go back through all the pages with. For whatever reason, I'm really after this dark cobalt turquoise today. It keeps coming up, so just going to use it. Play around with different ways that you can use whatever tools you have. Now I feel like just kind of making these dabs on the page, so I am. Next page. For whatever reason, I feel like doing more of a fields of color, and that page feels done for that. And you can see that it's coming onto the other page as well. It doesn't matter. This is not, again, final art, final presentation time, although it could be. You know, you might happen upon this flow where you just keep creating, and then maybe your entire series of these random abstract pieces becomes its own deck, and maybe you just go back through them all, you know, take photos of them, create the files, and then you ask each piece for a message, or you come up with maybe an inspirational word for each piece. So it can be that simple. It doesn't need to be, but it can be. So if you like more complicated, that's something to honor as well, that you don't have to make something complicated in order for it to be valuable, or in order for it to be worth exploring. And here I'm just noticing that I have used a lot of water on these pages, and they're all sticking together, and that is part of the experimentation too. I can't use my crayons can't push too hard with my crayons because it's going to rip the paper. And again, that's not a right or wrong. It's not a, oh no, I can't do this exercise. It's actually, I can do this exercise, and I can continue this exercise, and what I've already created and the way that the materials are interacting is showing me my next step. It's giving me my next direction. Because if I can't do one thing, if there's a door closed here, then my open door must be based on adaptation. So I've got these pages. Let's see, can I go back through one more time? I think I'm going to pick up my metallic marker here. I just have a random marker. And just feel into adding some more marks on some of these pages. And you can see how these each kind of have their own personality, even though I'm using the same materials and the same colors on each page. Using different tools. You could be using just a ballpoint pen and a pencil. You don't even need watercolors, although I always recommend watercolors because there's so much you can do with them. You can use a light wash of them. You can use a highly pigmented application. And one more, I think, and this one I'll probably come back and add some more red too, but and then I'm going to use my red crayon because this was an extra page that, and I'm noticing that's threatening to rip the paper, so then I just adjust, unless my intuition tells me that that's just a sign not to add color there, but I'm feeling like it's just a sign to adjust my touch. All right, so here, I'm just gonna take you back through these. So just noticing, these are the same tools, but these are all different. Use the same colors, the same tools on each page. Yeah, you know, it's sticking together and they're blending together, and that's not the point. Although what I really love is when the pages do touch each other and then create new textures on this page that I, could not have possibly planned. I love those happy accidents, and I do have some pieces. Actually, one of the other pieces that I showed you already which is one of my favorites. This one right here was a happy accident because I laid down this piece of paper on top of another piece I was working on, and I came out with all of these cool ink splotches that I've added some additional things to. But these happy accidents can be the basis for something even more magical. And so it's just having the patience and being willing to play with the flow enough to sit down and see what happens. So these are just the ones that I did before the spiral notebook, so you can see kind of how they're drying. Some of them are drying more quickly than others. I really like the texture in that one. And even that one's fun. It's really fun. Here's my other one. And so you can see this is just a whole big stack, right? And then have an extra dab of paint there. And then what I will do, and these aren't all dry yet, but I could still go back. And maybe, you know, I'm flipping around the orientation, so I have a different orientation. So maybe now I come back to my watercolors, and now maybe I want to dilute that dark watercolor and just add on top. You don't have to have a plan or know what's going to happen, and you don't have to worry about messing anything up, because again, we did not sit down to create final pieces of art. We sat down to give our own unique creative expression room to play, room to dance, so that your own unique unicorn creativity feels safe to come out of the clearing and really, really start galloping and show you what's possible. So then see, I'm just going through again, and maybe I feel like using the same tools this time, maybe I don't. Maybe I feel like using similar marks, maybe I don't. For whatever reason, I'm just really digging into this watercolor and really liking the opacity, so I'm not even using very much water. The water that I already put in the pans has softened the pan of paint, and so I'm really almost digging up clumps. And this is why I tend to go through my watercolors quickly, actually, because, again, I've noticed for myself that part of my unique expression is really digging into those pigments and using it. And now I feel like using this other. And I was really enjoying those dabs with this angled brush. And this isn't even a watercolor brush. It's a, I think it's a mixed media brush. I bought them because I have been experimenting with gouache, which is like, it's kind of like opaque watercolor, but it's very interesting in its consistency, and it's been very tough for me to kind of get a handle on in terms of how I want to express with it. So I have been taking some tutorials, and when I do tutorials, I don't recreate what the instructor is creating. I kind of listen and kind of play on my own and implement what I feel is relevant to myself, because I don't believe that there are rules, and I also don't believe in replicating someone else's art, because that takes me away from creating what my own art is supposed to look like. Which was funny to me because there's another artist out there and she calls herself a soul artist, and she just sent out an email with these, quote, new paintings, new soul paintings she'd done, and they're almost exact replicas of another artist's work. And so I thought it was really funny that as a soul artist, she is essentially promoting not tuning into your own creative capacities, but copying someone else's, although I don't know that she knew people could recognize the work that she created as being like someone else's. But I am here to encourage you to be you and express you and let go, sit down and tune into whatever energy, whether it's, hey, my intention is to deepen into this energy I've been channeling. I don't know what it is. I don't know how to represent it visually or verbally, and I would just like to play with those energies. Or maybe it's, You know, I really want to communicate with the consciousness of my deck. I feel like it's just not working for me to tune in and, you know, wait for a response. And so I'm going to sit down and I'm going to start the flow and I'm going to see what emerges. And from what emerges, notice, you know, what patterns, or notice maybe there's one piece that stuck out more than the rest because for whatever reason, you know, on page 20 of the 30 that I did, I finally hit my flow because I was, for whatever reason, able to let go enough to really let the magic emerge. Noticing that, and, you know, it's not that needs to happen either and that something's gone wrong if you don't have some kind of epiphany from a specific creation session. But it's really about the concept of being willing to play and explore, thoroughly letting go. And it might take a few sessions before you find yourself really letting go. You might think you're letting go, but you're really being safe, you know? So it's just about playing and noticing what you love, maybe what you are loving most about what I'm creating, and take only that, because we want to follow the joy, and what you love the most is a sign that is resonating with you. And I don't mean, you know, which piece of mind do you love the most and go copy that. I mean, what are you loving about the way I'm expressing? Is it the way the colors are blending together? Is it the way I'm using different media? Or maybe you don't like the fact that I am just messing around with different media. Maybe for yours, that is a sign that you want to stick to maybe monochrome, or maybe you want to stick to just using colored pencils. Notice that as well. You know, notice what draws you in and what doesn't feel as resonant. Now I'm feeling like coming back in with some more this crayon. So I am. And I'm also going to be posting this video, besides for you guys, my sweet Oracle tribe, I'm also going to be posting this video for my Patreon patrons, because I have started a Patreon page where people can sign up and, you know, get insights, completely exclusive, things I don't post anywhere else, insights, channelings, sketchbook spreads, you know, of things that are totally in progress and not anywhere near, you know, what you would want to, well, what I would want to show as my quote portfolio, but I feel the process is so important. But anyway, I will probably add this as a bonus for my patrons so that they feel that little extra love, because I love giving extra goodies when I can. And hence why I'm making this video for you all. Thanks to Tammy for inspiring it. And you can just see how the layers start to develop. And for me, something else that I really love is layering. And that's part of the reason this practice developed is because I love layering so much. Part of it too is because I found myself getting so stuck on some paintings because they took so long because of the layers, and so I wanted to have something more I could create with when I was feeling stuck. I'm feeling like coming back to the more opaque watercolors now, which are almost like gouache, as I mentioned, or the way I'm using them is more like gouache with the opacity. And just continuing to play. And you don't have to add anything to your creations. Again, you could just throw the whole pile away and acknowledge it as having been an exercise to allow your own unicorn to feel safe and secure enough to emerge. But almost through here. And, you know, I keep stacks of these downstairs at my desk, and I will just pull them out and decide that I want to add, you know, go through them and do exactly what I'm doing right now. And it's ongoing. And as I mentioned, you know, there literally are times when I go through the stacks that I have lying around and I just feel into which ones need to be let go, and I literally throw them away. Because again, this is an exercise in exploration and encouraging your own creative muse and your own unique expression, the way that you are most honored, and you are the way in which you are most contributing to your own, you know, purpose by exploring and expressing in that way. So I'm adding some gold here. I'm kind of feeling into, I feel like there needs to be some more red, so or this is kind of a berry color. And for whatever reason, these little kind of dab marks are coming back. And again, you know, I am so passionate about you not selling yourself short and not selling your deck short. Because if you have this deck, then it's here to come through you. And by that, by selling it short, I don't mean it needs to look perfect and be completely, to look as if you paid, you know, thousands of dollars, thousands and thousands of dollars to have it designed or whatnot. I mean that in order for your deck to have the most potency, it needs to have as much of you and your own unique expression as possible. In order for your paintings to have the impact they were meant to have, they need to be fully you and not, you know, mimicking someone else's process step by step, you know, creating replicas and then putting them out there as your own because they aren't fully your own. You know, you have actually restricted your own flow by creating something someone else has created step by step. So, and that's, again, why I encourage, take your own spin on things. You know, take the things that you see me doing that inspire you and put your own spin on it. For example, you know, one of the ways that I got into making these super abstract backgrounds was by following artist Juliette Crane. And she literally just sits down and she would scribble on a piece of paper, and that would be the start of her painting. And I found that concept so freeing. And so she goes on in her tutorial videos, because I've taken a number of her courses, to make her paintings into some kind of character or some kind of person. And I have no inclination to go there. What I took from her demonstration was what I loved about it, and not to create a painting that was like hers, but to find a place for that technique in my own method of expressing and with my own subject matter and with my own, you know, intuitive exploration and play. And so that's what I encourage you to do, is, again, not to say, oh, what color is she using? And I need to use that color, and I need to use that brush, and I need to make a composition that looks like that, especially because the purpose of this exercise is to completely let go, right? And then maybe I want to take this and go on here. I just feel like adding some more marks there. And then this piece is done. So then we'll just go take a quick review back through this last set of pieces, which was with just adding a second layer on the first that we had gone through. This is the one I just finished, so it's a little wet. And again, you don't have to like it. Well, you don't have to do anything or have to think anything. All I encourage you to do is to continue to explore. And again, whether you take the stack and let them dry and then go through them again, whether you pick out your favorites and throw the others away, whether you use these and fold them into, you know, cards and give them away, or whether you just use them as a continual deepening exploration of your own creative potential, that's what I most encourage. Me again, and yes, I am sitting au naturel without any kind of formal staging or professional studio or anything, and I'm still able to bring this information and inspiration to you. So let that be an inspiration as well, that it's not about having the perfect setup before you're able to share your knowledge, to put your knowledge and wisdom and magic into an oracle deck, to create your own art for your decks. It's all about, using the tools that bring you the most joy. And if there are, quote, limitations or supposed limitations, then creating what brings you the most joy with those limitations or with those supposed restrictions, I guess. As you can see, I'm here in the living room and I don't have anything, any kind of professional setup going on, and that's okay. And I want to do it this raw and real because that to me is much more inspiring than someone who has the perfect pretend life and setup and is creating from that space, from that masquerade or charade. Instead, I create from the authenticity of me so that I can then give you permission to create from the raw authenticity of you. And I hope this has been helpful and inspiring. If you have any questions, let me know, and I will do my best to answer them. And I would love to see and hear about what you create from here. Bye, guys.